Welcome to Second Round Syndrome. Round 2. Fight.
Welcome on into Second Round Syndrome, your talk for the Philadelphia 76ers and the NBA. I'm your host, DJ Sports Zone. With me is my co-host, Jordan Sabel. Jordan, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's been a heavy basketball week for me with a lot of following the college sports game, March Madness, Purdue. But yeah, let's focus on the association now. Let's go and dive in and discuss.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna talk to you a little bit about March Madness maybe later in the show because, as you said, you were at a couple games yesterday. You're supposed to be at a couple games tomorrow. I've been watching a little bit of March Madness. I'm not as into it as you are, obviously, but as I do, as a lot of people have, I have brackets going. So, it's definitely an exciting time to even be remotely interested in basketball because of the college hoops. With the Philadelphia 76ers, though, it's a little bit of a different story. Now, right now, they're 38 and 32. They are still ninth in the Eastern Conference. This is kind of an interesting week for the Sixers because, I'm a little bit more positive about them because, okay, since our last show, they beat the Portland Trailblazers at home. They did get blown out by the Denver Nuggets, and then they had a pretty nice win over the Sacramento Kings, right? You look at that Kings game in particular, it was a nice game, right? VJ Edgecombe had a career high, 38 points. You also had Justin Edwards with a career high, 32 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 7 of 11 from three. I mean, he had a great game. Quentin Grimes, 27 points. Bona, 8 points, 10 rebounds. Overall, it was a great game. But then you look at it. This is kind of the problem with the Sixers right now. And as of recording this tonight, they will face the Utah Jazz at 9:30. Joel Embiid still is out. Still no Tyrese Maxey. Still no Kelly Oubre. Paul George will return from his suspension Wednesday next week, March 25th against the Chicago Bulls. We'll see if he ends up actually playing or not. But when the Sixers play a solid team, like, for example, the Denver Nuggets, they will get blown out. It's just going to happen. And Denver had pretty much all the players, right? I think the only player they were missing that game was Peyton Watson, who is returning, I believe, today, if not very, very soon here. But when they play a team that's pretty bad, right? When you look at the Sacramento Kings, when you look at the Utah Jazz, like the Kings, for example, DeMar DeRozan is their best player, and he didn't score at all in the first half. I mean, Russell Westbrook is way past his prime. I mean, DeRozan ended the game with 13 points, 6 of 10 from the field. Westbrook, 11 points, 4 of 10 from the field. But, I mean, their best players were like Maxime Reynaud, if I even said that name correct, and then like Daquan Plowden, who on the broadcast, they wouldn't stop bringing up that he's from Philly, and this Philly matchup between Plowden and Justin Edwards. I didn't really understand it. It's not quite the hype between a Steph Curry versus LeBron or a Wembanyama versus a Chet Holmgren, or you name some of the great rivalries in this league. I don't think anyone is, anticipating the Justin Edwards versus Daquan Plowden matchup. I don't think anyone on planet Earth is thinking that, but they made sure on that broadcast to keep reminding you of that. But they didn't have any other players. Utah, Keontae George is out, still no Lauri Markkanen, no Walker Kessler, no Yusuf Nurkic, no Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, they're missing all their guys. So do I think that they're going to win tonight? Absolutely. Because once again, when it's a team that's not trying to go anywhere, they're going to win. Now, the only real difference, I was actually at the Portland Trailblazers game, and I thought that was solid. Now, Portland is a decent team when you have guys like Denny Avdia, Drew Holiday, Jeremy Grant, Donovan Clingan. Great team, but I feel like the Portland Trailblazers this year, they're a surprising team. It's kind of like Utah a couple of years ago when Lauri Markkanen first got there, and he ended up being like a first-time All-Star, and he was even a starter that year. I actually believe the All-Star game was in Utah that season, so it made sense. But Portland, again, it's a team that you didn't expect to be as good as they were, but they're not good enough to do anything this year. Now, next year, when Damian Lillard returns, I think they'll be solid. Are they going to be a top team in the West? Of course not, but I think they'll kind of be in that 7-8 seed range, kind of like what the Phoenix Suns are this season. But it was still a nice, solid win. I think they played great defense against Denny Avdia. I mean, Jeremy Grant played great late, but the Sixers did enough where they were able to get past that game. But the question is always going to be, no matter what happens, no matter what happens with the Sacramento Kings game or the Utah game tonight, it's going to be when Joel Embiid returns. Like, yes, it's super exciting that VJ Edgecombe scored 38 points in an NBA game. The last Sixers rookie to do that was Tyrese Maxey. I believe that was against the Denver Nuggets when there was only 7 players available. This was during pandemic times. So, Maxey showed up 39 points that game. It was insane. I mean, he was playing against he was playing with players that you probably have never heard of. Like, I was looking at it before we even started recording, like Dakota Mathias or something was in the starting lineup.
Purdue legend.
Oh, Purdue legend. There you go. I mean, but he never played in the NBA ever again since then. These are the players. Now, Maxey was not even close to, the player he is now, but that was definitely a breakout game for him. But it's great. It's great seeing that Justin Edwards is playing well lately. It's great seeing that we're getting some nice production from Quentin Grimes. But it only matters if you're doing that against a good team. I mean, Sacramento is not a good defensive team at all. I mean, you look at some of their best players. Again, Russ doesn't play defense. DeRozan does not play defense. I mean, they're also a horrible three-point shooting team. Even back when they had Levine and Sabonis early on in the season, they're just not a good team at all. But can we see them do that against, one of the top teams in the league, like on Monday? Can we see them do that against the Oklahoma City Thunder? Probably not. Right? They're probably going to get blown out, whether or not Joel Embiid returns. That game in particular, we'll talk about in a little bit, because I think that's going to be the most anticipated game of the season, just because we're going to get the return of Jared McCain to South Philly. But the question is going to be, when does Joel return? Now, the interesting part with that is they actually upgraded him before the Sacramento Kings game. He's been out, obviously, the last several weeks. I think he's missed 12 or 13 consecutive games since he got hurt against the Miami Heat when Khalil Ware, gave him that oblique strain. But they upgraded him from out to doubtful. Now, doubtful isn't much better. I mean, doubtful, as it suggests, means that he's most likely not going to play. It's usually when they upgrade him to questionable, it's okay, he's more than likely to step on the floor, right? They're never just going to put him as active. That's just kind of how they work with Joel Embiid for the last 2-3 seasons. But in this Utah game, they just set him as out automatically. Like, they didn't put doubtful. They didn't tease Sixers fans at all. He's just out. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen on Monday yet. They'll probably give us an idea, if not tomorrow, then early Monday, because they can't wait too long to release the injury reports anymore, since Adam Silver has been on top of teams a lot more this season when it goes into things like tanking or load management. I don't think he's going to play against the Thunder, Jordan. I think, if anything, the earliest we're going to see him, just because this is just how Joel's been this season, is against the Chicago Bulls game. One reason being is because Paul George is eligible to return then. And also, two, it's not a tough team to go against. Like, he's going to get annihilated against the Thunder, when you're playing against Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, and even the other Jalen Williams is a great player too. I don't even know who their center is in Chicago anymore. I mean, I think they have Jalen Smith. I don't even know who any of their other bigs are. I think they acquired, if I'm correct, Nick Richards at the trade deadline as well. I think those are the few centers they have, but it's nothing, it's nothing hard for a Joel Embiid to go against. I mean, do you agree that that's probably the earliest we're going to see him? Obviously, the latest we'll see him is never, but I'm talking about the earliest.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that he's not playing tonight. He's not going to play on Monday. They're going to probably let him rest some more until Wednesday against the Bulls. And I guess I hope we hear things possibly on Monday. Maybe he gets upgraded doubtful, kind of then pushing towards that ability to then play on Wednesday. But it wouldn't shock me if they're just going to put him as out again on Monday, and then he'll play on Wednesday with the return of Paul George, and, kind of get the team back into where they were in the middle of the season when everyone was coming back from injury. I do think what you said with the Bulls, they don't have that significant starting center like the Thunder does with Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, who are going to dominate Embiid, and possibly, I'm not saying they're going to dominate him, but Embiid is going to have a tougher challenge against the Thunder, and that's probably a guaranteed loss compared to the Bulls, where I think that's a a chance to win and push ourselves back up in the standings. But I do think that he will probably play on Wednesday, and I'd hope he'd play on Wednesday. I just hope he doesn't keep sitting out. Like, we need him to get back and reintegrate into the team before playoffs. So that's what I'm thinking. Do think he'll play Wednesday. He won't play Monday. He's obviously not playing tonight.
Yeah, I feel like there is some hope. And last episode, I was very negative about it, and I had every right to be. I don't take back anything that I said in the last episode. By the way, if you haven't checked out our previous episode, make sure to do that because I think it was a great show. But when you look at the overall standings, right? As I said, the Sixers are 30-32. The 6th seed right now is the Orlando Magic. They are 38-31. They're only half a game behind the Orlando Magic. And then when you look at the 5 seed, the Toronto Raptors, they're 39-30. So it's not, it's not that far away. Now, I think that's the furthest they could go because the 4 seed is the Cavaliers right now. They're 43-27. They're not getting there whatsoever. That's not happening. But there is a possibility. And I want to try to be positive a little bit more so than last show, just because it's the only way to keep, at least for me, myself sane going through the rest of the season. Now, obviously, if they continue putting up this BS that they've been doing for the last several weeks, I'm going to continue to call them out because that's who I am. That's what I'm going to do for both myself as a fan and for the fan base in general. But if they could win enough games, especially if Joel Embiid can return on Wednesday, because as I said in our last show, I don't think they're going to win many games. I think I said out of the 15 games that were left at the time, they were only going to win about 6 of them without Joel. Now, if Joel does come back, that can get bumped up a couple. I don't know by how much, but I think they're more likely to win some of those games. They could possibly make a push. I mean, you look at today, for example, as I said, the Sixers face the Jazz. I think they'll win that game. Miami faces the Houston Rockets. Now, Miami hasn't played well as of late. Houston isn't a great team by any means this season. I'm actually pretty negative about them as of recently. I mean, their cracks are starting to show just because they don't have a point guard. I mean, Fred VanVleet has been out the entire season. Their depth at big is pretty bad behind Alfred Şengün, who is not even a shooter as it is. I mean, their backup center is Clint Capella because they lost Steven Adams for the remainder of the season as well. But I still think just because you have Kevin Durant, you have Amen Thompson, you have Alfred Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr. can put up some good numbers. Maybe they're able to beat Miami. And if the Sixers win, obviously they can pass the Miami Heat there. In Atlanta, I think they're playing better as of lately just because of the emergence of like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Johnson, and even like a Jonathan Kuminga. But they could get up to that 5 or 6 seed, and that's all you need, especially the 6 seed. Obviously, if you do that, you would end up facing the New York Knicks in the first round. But at this point, if you're the Sixers, you could go one of 2 ways. You can lose games, as many games as you can. I mean, the lowest you're going to get is the 10 seed. We discussed this last episode too. The lowest you're getting is 10. You're not going to 11. Milwaukee is not going to win enough games. And you still have a shot to get a top pick because their pick is top 4 protected. They still have a chance to possibly add an AJ DeBonster or a Darren Peterson or Cam Boozer, whoever else will end up in that top 4. They do have a shot to do that if they drop down to the 10 seed and lose that playing game. Or, which I think, you obviously were suggesting more, and something that I hope they end up doing is they can win enough games or they can skip the play-in, because the play-in, I understand why it exists. It is entertaining to watch when your team isn't in it. When your team is part of the play-in, it's like torture. And if it wasn't for Nico Batum a couple of years ago against the Miami Heat, I think Sixers fans would have been pulling their hair out of their heads. Like, it just, Batum saved Sixers fans in that play-in game, but it's torture to watch because it turns into that March Madness, that pool play, and that's not what the NBA is known for. They're known for those, best of 7 series. So if they could end up getting that 5 or 6 seed, I think they're very solid. What are your thoughts on that?
It really depends on the health of this team.
Right.
And we've kind of focused on that on multiple occasions
You
since
have
I've
to.
joined the show. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, this team has never been healthy. I think
Hmm.
it's only been at one show where we talked about a team that was all together, everyone playing, and it's super dependent on the health of obviously the full team, but obviously our star player, Joel Embiid. That's the serious point there. He has to be healthy in order for this team to move up in the standings. I think we're going to be in the playing game. I just think just as a
Hmm.
result of him not playing, you're going to drop games. We're going to drop games we're supposed to drop. We're not going to beat top teams in the East or the West, whichever side we play. We're going to beat the teams that are below us in the East and below us in the West as well. That's just kind of how the NBA is. There's games you're going to win and lose. You're not going to win everything. If you were to win everything, we'd push ourselves higher up in the standings. That's just how things go with the back-to-backs and everything. I think we'll be in the playing games. Now, the ultimate goal would be, and I never want to see a player or seriously injured stay out for obviously a significant amount of time in the playoffs. But if we were to have to, get in the playing game and then kind of force our way into this matchup against the one seed Pistons, if they're without Cade Cunningham, there's a serious chance, if all of our team is healthy, to put some serious pressure on them and possibly force a competitive series against them. That's what I think. I think that's a possibility. I wouldn't want to play many other teams. I wouldn't want to play the Celtics. I wouldn't want to play the Knicks in the playoffs. I think both those teams are dangerous in their own right, and I think both those are the cream of the crop in the East and will absolutely destroy us, whether we're healthy or not. If we're not healthy, it's going to be even worse than if we are healthy. But if we can kind of push ourselves into that 1-versus-8 matchup, that gets us through in the plan if we lose the first game and then you have to go into the next round. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% too sure on how the plan works, but if we can get ourselves into that 1-8 matchup with the Pistons and Sixers, if Cade Cunningham is not playing, we have a serious chance of possibly, like I said, putting pressure in that series and could cause some chaos there. What do you think?
I like that you kind of mentioned the Detroit Pistons. I mean, for those that don't know, Shams Charania put out 2 days ago that Cade Cunningham has been diagnosed with a collapsed lung and he's expected to miss an extended period of time. And I even mentioned this back when the Pistons blew out the Sixers a week or two ago. Their Achilles heel is playing without Cade Cunningham. The minutes that Cade is not on the floor, the Pistons are not a very good team. And that's just because when Cade is out, who is that guy that's going to score for you? Who's going to be that guy to get you a bucket? And they don't really have that. I mean, the idea last season and even going into this season is that guy would have been Jaden Ivey. Now, obviously, that didn't end up working. He's not with the Bulls. The Bulls are not even really playing him much. But who is that guy now? Is it Tobias Harris? Is it Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, Dennis Jenkins? I mean, Javante Green. I mean, they have a lot of good scoring options, but none of them you can, say that this guy, Asar Thompson, is your number two. Really, your number two is Jalen Duren, but Duren is not known as a scorer. He can get you 30 and 10, right? But he's going to play hard. He's going to be physical. He's going to get you those boards that you need. He's going to play elite defense alongside Isaiah Stewart as well. But he's not going to be the guy to get you a bucket. If obviously as we always say, it depends on the health of this team. If Embiid is back, Paul George is back, Maxey's back, Oubre's back, you have your full roster. I think the Sixers could take the Pistons without Cade Cunningham. Now, if Cade is back, I don't think that's going to happen no matter what happens with the health of this team. If Cade is not there and Joel Embiid is not there, I also think that the Sixers will not beat the Detroit Pistons because I do not believe, and we've seen it already, that Andre Drummond and Adem Bona can match up to Stewart and Duren. It's just not going to happen, right? This team already stinks in terms of rebounding and protecting the rim. And when pressure is put on these top scorers right now on the team, and I say top scorers in quotation marks when you're talking about, VJ, who's in his rookie year, but especially when you're talking about Quentin Grimes and Justin Edwards, and I don't even know who else, a campaign. you're not going to have luck when you have those two bigs, two of the most physical bigs in the entire NBA right now, protecting the rim. So it's definitely a toss-up because it all depends on if/when Cade returns. Now, because Cade is going to be out for an extended period of time, that gives the Boston Celtics a boost. I think now I could safely say that the Boston Celtics are coming out of the East. Right? We've talked so much on how Jaylen Brown has carried this team, and he's in MVP conversations. They should be in MVP conversations. Jason Tatum's back. You got great play from Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. You're going to get Vucevic back. I mean, do you think at this point that Boston is now going to come out of the Eastern Conference because of Cade Cunningham being out?
I don't think it's exclusively because Cade Cunningham is out. I think they're going to position themselves and they're going to start to dwindle that I think they're 4 games back currently. That's going to start to dwindle. I think you're going to see like a drop off in wins in next few games for the Pistons, but I think the Celtics are going to continue to win. You add in, like we've talked about this in previous episodes, you add in a high quality all-star player in Jason Tatum to this team. It's pretty much a free agent pickup. We've talked about that. And then you add that into an already existing really good core that's played together for a pretty significant amount of time in terms of the NBA, all been on the team for more than a few years. They know the coach, they know the system and all of that. And you add in Tatum to that, and it's just, I've said this since Tatum came back. I think they are going to cement themselves as the number 1 seed in the East. So do the Sixers want to play that then? Absolutely not. I will not want to ever play the Celtics in the playoffs just because that exact fear of just getting, sadly, it is, we've been destroyed every single time we played the Celtics in the playoffs. But I do think they will end up coming out of the East. Whoever they play, they're just on another level. And credit to them and their organization. They have some of the best minds in basketball, and it sucks to say that.
It's hard to compare the last couple of years, though, because they faced the Celtics, I believe, with the Joel Embiid era. Let me be specific. I think it's 3 separate times, and it's against 3 separate teams. I mean, the first time we faced the Celtics in the second round, that was the first full year of Ben and Joel together. So they were still figuring things out. I mean, that's when you had Dario Sarge and Robert Covington in your starting lineup. And then you look at the next time they faced them, that was in the bubble first round. Ben Simmons didn't even play. You had Shake Milton as your starting point guard. That was with the Kemba Walker Boston Celtics. They got swept in that series. And then the last time, I mean, the Sixers took the lead. That was with James Harden on the team. They had that 3-2 lead. They were up in game 6, and then they let Jason Tatum get going in that fourth quarter. And then obviously game 7, we know they didn't even show up at all. This time around, again, I don't know what we're going to kind of expect. I mean, obviously, I think the last time we played the Celtics, that was the most competitive just because of those big games we got from James Harden in particular in game 1, and I believe it was game 4. And, Joel Embiid had great moments. I don't know. Tyrese Maxey played well in certain games. Tobias Harris played well in certain games in that series. We'll see what it is this time around. Now, I think we face the Celtics. The Sixers have no chance. It's going to be interesting to see as we kind of get further and further along. I don't think the Celtics are going to end with the 1 seed. I think they're still going to end with the 2 seed no matter what happens. I think they're more likely to end with the 2 seed than the New York Knicks, for example. But, once we start getting into the playoffs, especially depending on how long it takes for Cade to return, I think we're going to see the Celtics in the NBA Finals. That's just my prediction. But we'll keep you posted. We'll keep giving you our thoughts on different play-up matchups as we get closer. There's only about like a week or 2 before we start getting into the play-in, and then we can start figuring out the different type of matchups. But, we'll keep you posted on that. But as always, if you love Sixers game reactions and news, I do videos, multiple videos every single week. You can find me at DJ Sports Zone on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And also on those platforms, you can find clips from the show at Second Round Syndrome. We're going to do a couple quick topics before we end the show here. One quick topic. We actually didn't talk about this pre-show, Jordan, but I forgot that Giannis Antetokounmpo, they actually were trying to rule him out for the remainder of the season. He's been out many times with his calf injury since even going back to the playoffs last season. This season, again, calf injuries, and he is recently out with a hyperextended knee. They want to shut him down. They want to try to get a top draft pick. Giannis doesn't want to sit. Do you think that's fair or foul on Giannis?
That's a good point. I don't know. I think it's I think it's pretty foul on Giannis, but at the same time, doesn't he want to get traded as well in the offseason? Or
At
is he
this,
like, does he want to stay there?
I don't even know. This is the confusing thing at this point. We could date it back to last offseason when there were conversations that weren't confirmed, but they were looking to trade him to the Knicks, right? They had a trade that was possibly set up and it didn't go through. But Giannis has never officially requested a trade. He was never clear about it. Anytime he's spoken to the media, he's basically shut that down because he didn't want to look like the bad guy. And kind of after the many trade talks we've had, and it didn't actually turn into anything, it kind of seemed to me like at that point, Giannis didn't want to leave and the Bucks didn't want to move on from Giannis. Now, you could look at it from many different angles, Jordan. Number one, I don't know, other than like, I understand that Giannis is a competitive player. He's easily a top 3 player in the world. Like if you had to rank your top 3, top 5, Giannis is going to be on that list. I mean, you have guys like Shea and Jokic on the list, but Giannis is pretty much right after those two. Maybe you throw Wemby into the mix as well. But Giannis is still a top player in this league. The Bucks are not going anywhere this year. I mean, right now they are 28-41. They're about 8 games from the play-in at this point. There's no way that they're going to make the play-in when you have guys next to him like Miles Turner, Ryan Rollins, Kyle Kuzma. It's just not going to happen. They're not good enough. And even when Giannis returned, they still weren't winning games. I mean, I think they won maybe 1 or 2 games since he returned, but obviously now he's out again. Giannis is, I think he's 31 years old now, and he's already going through all these injuries. Him playing does nothing. I mean, his trade value, if anything, will, I think, decrease if he plays. Because if he continues to get injured, teams are going to get scared to trade for a guy that's on a massive contract. Now, it is all going to depend on this offseason if he signs that extension. Because I saw a report that I think it was the owner said if Giannis signs the extension, obviously he stays. If he doesn't, they're going to look at moving him, which makes sense. I don't understand, though, if you're the Bucks, why you would want to sign Giannis to a huge extension. I think that just holds you back as a franchise. Not because Giannis is a bad player, but because Giannis is one of the best players, and you can't build, around that because Giannis is going to win you games, and you need to lose games and get top picks in the draft over these next 2, 3, 4 seasons. So I understand, but I think at this point, the organization needs to put their foot down because Giannis is never going to say, okay, I'll sit back. I don't think he's ever believed in load management before. And I don't think he'll ever believe in load management. And he shouldn't, because that's just not who he is. He's a competitor. He's always going to compete. But the Bucks need to put their foot down and say, you are sitting. We need to lose games. We need to get a top draft pick, which obviously, I know people don't like hearing that. I know the tanking discussion has been a hot topic in the last several weeks, couple months, but the Bucks have to. You're not going to be able to build around Giannis anymore. There's just no point. And if you're Giannis, I understand you don't want to be the bad guy. And at this point, I just think it's very tiresome where nobody's going to think you're the bad guy at this point. You just need to break it off, right? If you end up on the Lakers and you win a chip with Luka Doncic, nobody's going to be mad at you for it. You were in Milwaukee for, I mean, how many years has he been in Milwaukee? It has to be about 10 seasons at this point. I mean, he's been in Milwaukee for a long, long time. He won them a championship, the first championship since Kareem did it. And, he even stayed years after that. It wasn't just like let me win a championship and then go to the Lakers, kind of like what Kareem did, which he could have left even before then, and he didn't. But Giannis stayed. He even, won them an NBA Cup, if that means anything. I mean, he stayed with them for a long, long time. Won MVPs, won Defensive Player of the Year. He's done so much with them. And I think at this point, with the back half of Giannis's career, he should move on. And the Bucks should want that. So I think both are in the wrong here. But I think at this point, the organization needs to put their foot down and say, Giannis, we understand. But at this point, it's not up to you. this is what's going to happen. And this offseason, if you want to sign an extension, we would love to have you. If you don't, it's time to move on. So, I mean, those are at least my thoughts on this Giannis situation.
No, I agree. I think you come from a pretty fair perspective there for the team and the player. I would tend to agree with what you said. Just if Giannis wants to stay, then I'd still think anyway he should be sat out the rest of the season. They're not playing for anything. You mentioned that there's no chance at play-in. I mean, there is technically based on the amount of games, but you would need a crazy switch of in terms of the teams above them losing everything and them winning everything. But that probably won't happen. I do think Giannis should probably sit the rest of the season, just for his health perspective. I know he's had these injuries recently, and it's just like it's kind of affected him and his play. Obviously, when he's back and in good fitness, he's one of the best players in the world. So I think they should protect the asset here and, sit him down, tell him rest out the rest of the season. I know he might not want to as a player and a professional, but I think both sides need to come to an agreement here. And I think for the best thing to protect the asset, at least from the team perspective, would be to sit him down for that season and then reassess in the offseason. Now, for the fans of Milwaukee, it's going to suck because there's a chance you'll never see him play in a Milwaukee Bucks jersey again by the time next season starts up because he could be traded in the offseason. But that's just the business of basketball, and these things happen, and it sucks. But I think from the Bucks perspective, you're going to have to lock him down and sit him out the rest of the season.
I mean, it's not like Giannis is going to be forced away from the fan base, kind of like, obviously Luka was pulled from the Mavs fan base well before they were ready to move on. I mean, when Dirk retired, it was time to move on and pass the torch to Luka. Now, the torch is now passed to Cooper Flag, but it wasn't supposed to be that way. I think Bucks fans, and obviously I'm not one, so I can't speak for that. I mean, any Bucks fans, make sure to let us know in the YouTube comments kind of what your overall feelings are on Giannis moving on from Milwaukee, what your opinion would be on that. But you also got to look out for any potential major injuries that could come from a calf strain, because typically Achilles injuries come from that. And that's the last thing you want, is for Giannis to push it harder than it needs to be. I mean, like Tyrese Halliburton did that. He was already hurt and he put himself back out there. Now, there's a difference because his team ended up in the NBA Finals. He was going to do whatever he could to be out there and help his team win, which he almost did. I mean, if that Achilles tear didn't happen, I think they would have beaten the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, this season with the Bucks, there's literally nothing to compete for. Nothing. So I understand, why Giannis wants to be out there. But again, I think the Bucks need to look out for the best interest of both Giannis's health, but obviously the team comes first. And then they'll kind of figure out what happens in the offseason. So again, it's going to be one of those things that we're going to have to look out for. They're never going to agree. I just think that's going to be what's going to happen with the two. I mean, the agreement is going to come when the extension is offered to Giannis, right? They're either going to agree on signing it or they're going to agree on moving on. And that's why this offseason is very critical for not just the Milwaukee Bucks, not just for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but also for the entire NBA, because just like the talk was all about Giannis during the trade deadline, the talk is going to be around Giannis unless he signs that extension, right? And the other topic that is a big talk in the NBA right now is NBA expansion. Now, we've heard so much about expansion over the last couple of seasons, but I think it's actually going to happen now, Jordan. The owners are going to meet up and they're going to put in a vote. Basically, the vote is to look at making a vote. It's like the vote before the vote of whether or not this is going to be something that's considered. Now, there's a couple things to look at in terms of expansion teams. It looks like they are going to add 2 new teams. One of them is looking to be in Las Vegas. The other one is looking to be in Seattle to hopefully bring back the Seattle Supersonics. Now, each of those teams, they're looking at like a $7 to $10 billion purchase for each of those franchises. The question to you, Jordan, is, do those 2 locations make sense? Do you think expansion is going to happen? We've also heard many past and present NBA players, like Draymond Green specifically, say that there's not enough talent in the NBA to expand, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with. What are your thoughts on kind of overall expansion?
I think overall expansion is good. I would love to see them back in Seattle from a historic perspective to have like the Supersonics name. That would be amazing because that team of the Supersonics, the franchise has so much history that when they moved to OKC, obviously they continued it on. But that city is passionate about their sports teams and they desperately would love to have an NBA team back. They they have it with the Storm now in WNBA. They have an arena already ready for them. It's just about getting them in there and getting it going. They've added the Kraken recently too with the NHL. So that city is craving an NBA team. Obviously for historical purposes, that I would like for them to go with the Supersonics name and keep that franchise going. But in terms of Vegas, obviously it seems like every single league is pushing to start up a new franchise in Vegas or move a franchise in terms of the A's and in baseball, which I personally disagree with, and I think that's a terrible decision from their owner. But obviously, I don't have too much of a opinion. I can make an opinion on that. I can't really dissuade anyone or persuade anyone, um, but yeah, I think Vegas from a financial perspective, the money's there. It's incredibly every single league's going there. The Raiders moved there. The Golden Knights now have a franchise there. The hockey team. The NBA was going to be there eventually, and I think they're pushing for it now. With sports betting taking like a huge rise in this country. Obviously, that's the capital of the world, capital of the United States for betting and gambling and stuff. So they already have an arena built there. It's just as simple as, getting the ownership group who's going to spend the money to buy the expansion team, because that's a extremely expensive thing and that gets dispersed to all the other owners, obviously. That's how these things work. But whichever owner comes in or whichever group of owners comes in to grab that team and start up, it'll be highly lucrative for the league itself. And I think it's a good thing. I think expansion is a good thing. Good thing. Brings more people into the sport. Um, I don't agree with that idea from Draymond, who said that there's not as much talent in the league. I don't agree with that. I think if there's more teams in the league, there's more opportunities for players to shine and grow and develop at starting positions. I think a lot of people and players get kind of stuck in the slog of whether that's like going through the G League and getting up there. I would like to see more of like a pathway from college and going through the G League, then up the ranks. Obviously, that's just kind of how things are. I would like to see more players in the league, and I think as if you add two more teams, you add more roster spots and more opportunities for players to shine. So I'm all for it. Like I said, I like expansion a lot. I like expansion in any league possible. Obviously, some are more established than others, but I think the NBA needs these two teams, and I think those two cities that they've picked so far are pretty solid choices.
I think there's easily enough talent, more than enough talent in the NBA. How many times do we see a role player or, maybe that second or third option move to their own team, become a superstar or even just an all-star? I mean, we saw that with Jalen Brunson going from the Dallas Mavericks to the New York Knicks, having his own team, when if you told people years before that he would be a star, a top 15, 20 player in the league, people probably would have laughed at you, right? We saw Tyrese Halliburton go from the Sacramento Kings to the Indiana Pacers and almost lead his team to their first NBA championship. We see this all the time where players blossom. We see Lauri Markkanen going to the Utah Jazz. We see Denny Avdia going from the Wizards to the Blazers. We see this all the time. I mean, we're seeing this right now with Jared McCain, and we'll see what happens when he comes to Philly on Monday. But there is more than enough talent. Like, what if an Austin Reeves moves to his own NBA team? You don't think he could possibly blossom into a top player in this league? Maybe, right? There are so many players that we're probably not even thinking of. Maybe like a Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know. But in terms of those two teams, like Vegas, it's 1,000% going to happen. I would be shocked if Vegas didn't end up with an NBA team. As you said, there are so many teams that are there right now, especially when you're talking about the Raiders and the A's moving, the Golden Knights. They have the WNBA team there. I think it is a huge opportunity, especially from a financial standpoint, when you could put things like casinos in the arena to drag, fans in there as like a tourist attraction of, hey, you could play at the casinos, or hey, you can, watch the NBA game. Right. I mean, I saw a clip of like a fancy restaurant in the Washington Wizards arena coming up here, which that I think is stupid. But when you're talking about, a location that's known for gambling, why not? I mean, I just think that makes total sense, and you'll get a fan base easily for that. Seattle, as you said, for a historical perspective, I think it makes a ton of sense. But at the same time, is there going to be an investor that wants to pay $7 to $10 billion for a team in Seattle? I mean, we just saw the Dallas Mavericks sell for what, $3 billion? I mean, the Lakers sold for 10, but they're the Lakers, right? They're the most historic franchise in NBA history, unless maybe you're talking about the Boston Celtics in there. So I think it makes total sense. Now, if it wasn't Seattle, I mean, there's a couple other ones that have been talked about. I know like Stephen A. Smith has brought up Nashville. I don't love that, for example, just because you already have a team in Memphis, and Memphis can block a team entering in Tennessee like a Nashville. So I think that makes zero sense unless Memphis gets relocated, which maybe that happens. Other teams, I mean, maybe they add another team in Canada. Maybe they add Vancouver. One team that I wanted to bring up to you, Jordan, that I think would be interesting, and I'm surprised that nobody has really brought this up, but what about a team in Pittsburgh, right? Like Pittsburgh, and as much as like Philadelphia sports fans hate Pittsburgh teams, whether you're talking about the Pirates or the Steelers, or in particular, like Flyers fans, we hate the Penguins. Why isn't there an NBA team, in Pittsburgh? Like basically when you look at Pennsylvania as a state, like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, I know they're not really, but they feel like two different states. Like you're either from the Pittsburgh side of Pennsylvania or you're from the Philadelphia side of Pennsylvania. So like for me, I think it would be exciting, especially if you could put, that Pittsburgh team in the Eastern Conference. They're in the same division as the 76ers. I think that'd be like a fun matchup between a Sixers team and a Pittsburgh team. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree. And then we come back to the expansion cost that it's going to cost someone. Does someone really want to spend $7 to $10 billion to put a team in Pittsburgh, or someone or some group of investors or people? Maybe you get the Steelers owners. I don't know. It's a family thing. They possibly could get enough people in the Pittsburgh area to fund this team. It's possible. They have an arena. They have a passionate Penguins fan base. I would guarantee that there would be fans there that would be willing to support them. Right now, it's just Pitt Panthers basketball that runs that city in terms of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really think in terms of, where, because the people who are going to go in and buy these expansion, they're coming from a business perspective. You buy a team to obviously get revenue out of it and get the revenue streams that the NBA provides, whether it's through TV money or all these different things. They'll get their money through that. Does an investor want to put this much money into a team, which Pittsburgh is not a big market? You look at LA, you said LA, you mentioned LA. LA is being sold for $10 billion. That is a completely fair price. They are one of the biggest markets in the country in terms of like TV viewership. They have probably one of the most lucrative local sports broadcasting deals, probably up there with the Dodgers. The Dodgers and the Lakers, I would say, have two of the most expensive like sports property deals for like local media. Pittsburgh is not going to have that. I know the Pirates have struggled with getting that, and the Penguins have a more of a passionate fan base than the Pirates, because the Pirates are considered poverty in MLB,
Mm-hmm.
just based on, recent history. But I think Pittsburgh is going to struggle if they were to get a team in terms of, generating revenue like other teams around them. Obviously, they're going to have a tough time competing against Philadelphia, bigger market, New
Mm-hmm.
York, way bigger market, DC, bigger market, Boston, bigger market. They're going to be in that region too, in terms of just how these things work. Now, I think they could compete against a Cleveland team. I think they'd be on a relatively similar standing in terms of the size of the market and things like that. But I do like your thinking. I think that would be an interesting choice if the NBA were to go there, but I would not expect to be high up on their list.
Plus, I think they've attracted great talent in Pittsburgh. I mean, you look at the NFL, you look at Ben Roethlisberger, for example. Obviously, they have Aaron Rodgers now, who obviously isn't the player he once was years ago, but that's still a big name. You know, the NHL, Sidney Crosby is looked at one of the top players in the entire league, right? I mean, they have so much talent that they could use that to bring, you know, maybe a top player or so into the city of Pittsburgh. Now, I think no matter what city you recommend, the cost is going to be a problem. I even saw a rumor that LeBron's camp may have pulled out of the Las Vegas interest of owning the team there. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think expansion needs to happen. I don't know. One thing that will also be interesting about that is we're going to have a team moving from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference. The three teams that I saw would be either Minnesota, it would be Memphis, or New Orleans. I personally would like to see Minnesota because that gives like Anthony Edwards, for example, a better chance to get a title because the East has just been a way easier conference to compete in than the West for many, many years. I don't think adding Memphis or New Orleans in there is going to make it a more interesting conference. And I also think Minnesota is a lot closer to some of the teams in its region. So I think Minnesota makes the most sense. Do you agree with that, or do you think it would be better to see Memphis or New Orleans in the Eastern Conference?
The Timberwolves make sense. It's a traveling partner for the Bucks and the Bulls as well. I think that would at least like bring them closer in terms of, there is that regional rivalry there between like the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois. So that would be one I would say. But also I just think on just general like geography, it wouldn't surprise me if they were to move the Grizzlies over just based on like the proximity of and how close these teams are to each other. Personally, I would say New Orleans would be that team that would probably still be stuck in the West.
Yeah, I mean, again, it will be interesting to see if we get, you know, what team or teams move over to the Eastern Conference. We're definitely going to kind of give our thoughts as we find out more information. We're probably not going to find out much more about it until the offseason happens when they have those discussions, when they put that vote in to kind of discuss this further. But I'm definitely excited. I mean, obviously we got so much going on in the NBA going into the playoffs. The Sixers, they only got a couple games left. I'm especially looking forward to Monday's game when Jared McCain returns back to the city of brotherly love. I think Sixers fans are going to let Daryl Morey, Nick Nurse, Josh Harris hear it when McCain scores 25 points over our Philadelphia 76ers. I think he's going to have a mega game. I don't know what he's going to say, how he's going to react, but I think he's going to put up a big shot and scream something about being sold high or something like that. It's going to be a fun matchup, but we're definitely going to react to that game and all the other games that are coming up. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button. Get us up to 100 likes, even more. Why not a billion likes? Why not? You can listen to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. I'm DJ Sports Zone. We got Jordan Sabel here. And as always, we will see you next time. Peace out.
See ya.